My apologies. Was I in the wrong room?
No, what happened was I logged onto Zoom without enough time and it took me automatically into Kate McGillivray's account, not Lisa Porcher's. And I couldn't figure out because I couldn't remember how to log out of it. And I just couldn't get to the meeting because my computer. So then I turned on my laptop because I knew that one anyway. And then I had to click on Kate's picture and then it allowed me to sign out and then I could sign back in again. So we don't even have a quorum yet. So then, I have to, oh, there we go. Good. Excellent. Now we do.
I have trauma of always saying I'm going to meet someone and then be, like not meet them, including to the fact of I was supposed to meet a witness before walking into a hearing together, and I told him to meet at the Dunkin' Donuts at the corner of Beacon Street and Cambridge Street, and there's actually two. So I was at one Dunkin' Donuts and he was at the other Dunkin' Donuts on an intersection in Boston. So.
Uh, okay, we are recording. Welcome, everyone. My name is David Pollock, and this is a public hearing of the Brookline Advisory Committee's Land Use, Zoning and Sustainability Subcommittee, and it is the subject of this hearing is the departmental budget of the legal department, or the Office of Town Council. We are joined by Joe Callanan, Town Council, and Melissa Goff, Deputy Town Administrator for Administration and Finance, and we have a quorum of the subcommittee, including Linda Pelkey, Brian Ladd, Carlos Ridjuejo, and myself. And I will turn it over to Joe Callanan to present, and I probably have to make you a co-host.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sure.
So this is the non-override budget. Is there anything different about if the override passes?
So this budget has a $30,000 reduction in outside services, and I understand if the override were to pass, then that $30,000 would not be cut.
Okay, thank you for that.
And let me share my screen. Do you see a PowerPoint?
Yes.
Excellent. Problem is it's on my other monitor, so now you're gonna look at my gorgeous left profile while I watch. So this, Office of Town Council isn't just me. You guys see a lot of me, but there's a lot of other of us. There's 7 of us. There's actually 5 attorneys and 3 support staff. And in the last 2 years, we've been adding paid legal interns. In the past, we've had unpaid legal interns who work for credit, primarily through New England School of Law land use or administrative law clinic. So they'll work for us 20 hours a week, for academic credit. In a previous fiscal year budget, we were able to get money we transferred it from outside services into payroll in order to have a full-time paid intern. That's typically a Northeastern student. Northeastern has a co-op program both for undergrad and law school, which means we're not just reliant on kind of the regular law school practice of summer interns, but we have an intern even in the winter. Nathan is with us full-time. I think they're 10 or 11 weeks out of the 13 weeks semester. So in the last couple of years, we've had a full-time legal intern, and typically what they do is the projects that require writing in a non-urgent kind of manner. So if we have something that could be addressed in 2 weeks or have 2 weeks turnaround, that's the type of stuff that we give to interns. That's not a lot of our work. A lot of our work is, I need an answer right now.
Or yesterday.
Yes, exactly. So we try to spare the interns of those things, but they do provide a lot of capacity for those kind of important but not urgent matters that tend to kind of fall by the wayside, or even the not important, not urgent ones, but we still need to get done. So they provide that capacity to make sure things don't fall through the cracks.
So I'm just gonna interrupt. Sorry. Is that okay,
Sure,
David?
feel free.
Yeah. So the two names I don't recognize under lawyers, were they hired last year or?
Barry is new.
Yeah.
Freeland is our labor and employment lawyer. She
Yeah.
started in October. Previously, you might have seen Michael Downey. Michael left a couple years ago. Michael was replaced by Elena Ben David. She got married, so it's Elena Brander. Or maybe there was the other way around. She was Brander, and then she was Ben David. But she left to go back. We hired her out of the New Hampshire Rockingham County DA's office, and she went back to the DA's office. So she tried civil stuff for a municipality, but she went back to criminal, being an ADA. Susan Harris has been here with us for more than 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
She came from us from DESE, where she was an attorney who primarily did teacher discipline. So she is hired as a generalist, but has been doing a lot of schoolwork. But
Mm-hmm.
we introduced her to zoning this year, so you're gonna see her more in land use AC. She has one of the warrant articles, not Jeffrey Allen's, the other zoning article. Was that Pleasant Street? You know.
Jeffrey Allen's is Pleasant Street. You might mean maybe the inclusionary zoning one, the changing the level.
Yeah, it might have been,
And then
talked
there's the
about.
ADU,
Nope,
but I know
Jonathan has
that's
ADU.
Jonathan is doing
Yeah.
that. And then there's Chestnut Hill West.
And Jonathan has Chestnut Hill West. But we're
Okay.
introducing Susan to zoning.
Uh-huh.
So you might see her more frequently. But Barry is labor and employment, so hopefully Barry doesn't come before you guys, but you'll see
Right.
her in collective bargaining stuff. So
Okay, thanks.
The inclusionary contribution is general bylaw, right? Is it zoning? The changing where the threshold is for
I think
making a
it's in
cash
the zoning.
contribution?
I think it's in the zoning.
Could be. That's the only, that would be if it's not, that would be the one.
Yep.
So maybe it's that one.
No, our old tracker has her assigned to Pleasant Street, but that could have changed.
oh, she's Pleasant Street? Okay. All right. So she's Pleasant Street. Yeah.
Mm.
Which is Jeffrey Allen.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was the non-Jeffrey Allen one, but then we're introducing her to zoning and one of our top,
Wow, that's really throwing her in on the deep end, but okay.
yes, that's what it was. That's why I didn't think we did it, but yeah, no, if she's gonna learn, she's gonna learn. Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
So that's our staff.
Yep, and this doesn't list the interns because they're not paid.
No, but Nathan Martin is our Northeastern law student, and Sophia Fravola is our land use, Northeastern, I'm sorry, New England land use clinic intern. She works part-time, so we tend to have those, New England law interns not work on warrant articles, because again, kind of it's just a quick turnaround. So they tend to do the longer term stuff.
Mhm.
Brookline Green Space Alliance asked us for help on like a bylaw
Okay.
about shadows. That was something our New England law land use intern worked on last semester. But again, not these warrant articles, because again, it's just too quick of a turnaround. So Sophia is working on a nuisance claim that we have. So we keep them busy, but it's just we try to spare them the kind of the quick turnaround stuff, because of one, they're new, and the New England ones are part-time. So
Mhm.
so this is just kind of out of the budget to show the highlighted parts that are different. Salaries, really the only change in salaries are the steps and lanes that staff get. So John and Jonathan are at their top step. The rest of us are, moved through the steps. The administrative staff was reclassified. So although Jane and Carrie were at their top step, they were recently reclassified, so they're now at a lower step. So these are really just step increases. That's the only change in salary. The change in services is a $30,000 reduction in outside counsel. If you remember, I've been trying not to spend outside counsel, but then
Mhm.
reallocate what we've been spending on outside counsel to other things in town council's office, and I'll get to that in a second. The only other change is an increase in our cost of IT laptops and things like that. So this budget represents a 1% cut in the town council's budget. Again, this is the no override scenario. So this is what I talk about, as during budget debates, how since I've been here 4 years now, 4 years in March of 2022, we've reduced the amount that we spend on outside counsel. Maybe Brian doesn't know, but Lyndon and David, you've heard. I came from the AG's office. I was in the AG's office for 11 years, and we in the AG's office did all of our stuff. I did land, mainly title. I did zoning issues, really kind of in the context of eminent domain cases, what would be a hypothetical development. But also I did construction cases, tort cases, preliminary injunctions. We did it all. So that's been my approach since we got here, or since I got here. I had a conversation with one of our attorneys, and we're like, well, we might need outside counsel. And I said, why would we need outside counsel? And it's like, what about eminent domain? And I said, I've tried a handful of eminent domain cases. And who was it? Who'd you hire for eminent domain? Oh, this particular lawyer. And I said, he was the one opposing counsel that I ever got my best result. So why would I hire him if I got my best result in any of my trials against him? So my philosophy has been to spend the money on us to develop that in-house capacity to be able to try cases, to be able to do more work with the existing resources that we have, as opposed to spend money. You get me at $95 an hour. Why we're going to hire somebody, at $200 or $250 or $300 an hour when they're not twice as good as me or 3 times as good as me. So my attitude has been, we spend this money on us. So we've been moving the money from outside counsel to more resources, such as a larger Westlaw package. So we have more resources at our desktop. We now have memberships of the Social Law Library. So Westlaw is great for online research. Social Law Library is the research that you want where it might be before the online world, the older Ward Commission reports, from the 60s and things like that. We also, you might have heard about departments wanting to digitize their old records and looking for money for that. We did that with existing resources from the special counsel. So we had boxes and boxes, I think dozens, 40, 50 boxes in the Pierce basement. So when they did the Pierce work and we had to get those boxes out of the basement, other departments also had to get their boxes out of the department. We just sent them to a place to have them scanned, and for $10,000, we got all the records that were in the basement that we would never look at, we would never touch, because it's scary and dark down there and mildewy and mouse ridden. They're now all scanned, and we have them on our shared drive, and they're much more easily available for us. But we did that with existing resources. We didn't need to go and look for more money or go to CPA for it. We took that money from special counsel and spent that on ourselves.
So when you say, Joe, when you say that you did it with existing resources, can you remind us, did you come to advisory and ask for a line item transfer to move that money? You did it on the budget?
It was a transfer that the select board approved because it was within our line items. Whatever, 51, 52, 50, 52. It's in the 52 series. So
so you didn't need advisory, but so so in 23, 24, 25, and 26 today, you're not spending nearly the amount of money that's budgeted.
Correct.
Are you still spending it in each of these years and getting the select board to approve how you spend it?
So when we transfer it from different line items, we get select board approval. However, in each of the last 3 years, we have also returned over $100,000 each of those 3 years.
Thank you.
So we don't spend all of it.
Sorry, can I follow up on that in terms of the outside spending, outside counsel and litigation costs? How have you determined that you can cut 30,000? I understand the general process, but how do you arrive at these numbers? And do I understand correctly, if something comes up that blows those away, then you go to the select board for a transfer?
So I didn't come up with the 30,000, so that would be a better question for Melissa or the other end of the sixth floor. But the kind of, blow through, we haven't, again, the 4 years I've been here, we haven't had a need for more money. So again, another use of the special counsel money that we've been spending on is shifting it over to settlements. So that's a kind of another portion that I want to talk about. Settlements is a little harder to predict, where I can say we are not
Can
spending
you just
money.
go back to the last slide and again show us with this $30,000 delta what the two numbers are? So it's either
It's the
144 or 114,000. But in 114 or 144, but Brian, in neither, both of those numbers are significantly higher than Joe expects to spend for that line item.
Right.
Okay.
On the next slide that we were already on, I wanted to ask you to elaborate a little bit on this back and forth between HR and who's doing what and who pays for it and all that.
So in the past, so when I got here in 2022, you might remember that there was a problem with there was criticism of HR that they were behind on investigations, and there had been a police employment discrimination case pending, and part of the that was part of the allegation in that police discrimination case, which we ultimately settled last year, that investigations weren't being handled timely. So when I got here, we surged town council resources. We had town council staff do investigations, both attorneys and paralegals. So we kind of surged town council resources to help the HR department with their investigations. In December, so we caught up, in December 2023. So I got here in March 22. So a year and a half, we're all caught up. And I said, by the way, now that we're caught up, we have enough investigations that we should hire an internal investigator. And the town administrator's office said, that's a great idea, but HR isn't asking for that. And I said, I'll advocate.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Like we need it. So if they're not asking, I'll ask. That was approved. However, as soon as it was approved, HR wanted it in their department. So the following fiscal year, it was moved over to HR. So you'll see in the FTE count, you'll see it blip up one and blip down the next. Because in 24, it was added as an investigator to town council's office. In FY25, it was moved over to HR. So HR is now responsible for investigations. However, during that time, as you saw, we were also helping not with just in-house staff, but also our special counsel dollars. So we were also paying for investigators, outside investigators, with the idea that investigations would be a shared service between legal and HR. And in the last fiscal year, it's been decided that that's an HR function, and then it will be an HR expense. So.
Hi, Joe. Sorry.
Sure.
Linda, you're done?
Well, no, I was just going to, I'm looking at the slide though, and it says paid by town council's office. So,
correct.
But the person who's doing the investigation is residing in HR, but you're paying, but the town council's office ability to hire outside is what's facilitating you guys paying for it. That's what I'm confused about.
Yeah, because that's so hold on. That's not what's happening.
Okay.
This expense, the blue expense, is for outside investigators. We've been trying to switch from an outside investigator model to an internal investigator model. So we still don't have an internal investigator hired. So our last investigations, because HR doesn't have the capacity to do them all with existing resources, they tend to have to need the outside investigators occasionally.
Okay. And why are they not paying for that?
They weren't, they will. So in the past sense, they weren't paying for that because it was during this period of, is this a town council expense or an HR expense? Now it's been decided it's an HR expense. So town council will not be paying for it in the future. So
Okay, so the 26 is the last year that's happening.
correct.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
I was sorry, my screen is off, but I'm on my phone and it just doesn't work otherwise. Since we're talking about outside counsel and outside investigations, I believe in the last 6 months or so, 8 months, in the past 8 months, there was an investigation of a bunch of town meeting members, 4 or 5 town meeting members. Can you give us a summary of that, and also explain how much was spent, if it was inside or outside investigations or counsel? Thanks.
Sure. The expense was about $20,000, and it was paid by town council's office. It was a complex investigation because it involved more than just, kind of like an employee saying, I was whatever, and you interview the employee and you interview the, person accused. There was lots of people involved, so it was not your typical kind of investigation involving 3 or 4 or 2 or 5 people. I think ultimately it was 8 or 10. So it was more of a complex investigation, and there was also a lot of kind of scheduling, and it was over the summer and people were unavailable and people weren't going to be interviewed and decided to be interviewed, and interviews scheduled, but then people not showing up. So it was a lot of procedural complexity, never mind substantive complexity. So that's why you probably got to a $23 something thousand expense, as opposed to probably, it could have been a $10,000 or $15,000 expense. The investigation itself was about town meeting members' use of public resources during the debate last spring about sanitation, and whether town meeting members had was it unwarranted privileges, use use of town resources for political purposes. If you remember, in years past, we had the same issue involving the school department, and whether principals were allowed to take what the superintendent had created and then put it out in mass emails to their student, and parent groups. The Office of Campaign and Political Finance said, although it was okay for the superintendent to create those information and work, it wasn't okay for the principals to use it because they were not in senior policymaking positions. The result of the investigation into the town meeting members were a finding that they were more like the superintendent, so they were allowed to use public resources, than the principals who are not. So, Mel, and Chaz has since then, always sent out a memo to staff about, use of town resources in political campaigning. And we'll have an amendment, we'll have a change this year to make sure that distinction is further, explained, that people, department heads mainly, have the ability to use town resources to answer questions involving ballot questions, but division heads or lower do not. So, if you ask me a question about, a ballot question, my staff, I can answer that. My staff or our division heads cannot. My administrative staff cannot. So we get this distinction, between, are you in a senior policy making position and then you can use town resources, or are you not and you can't?
Who initiated the investigation?
Right.
Sorry, Carlos.
Yeah, I had two follow-up questions. One of them was a written complaint, and so where it was initiated. The second one was, I'm a little confused about because you mentioned staff, but town meeting members are not staff, and they're also they don't follow this. They don't have the same rules as other group. And I can't remember now exactly the technical term of the liabilities that follow with them, like that other non-town meeting members have. And then the third question with that would be, I thought that there was an office at the state level that looked into those cases without incurring a cost to the town. That they, again, I don't have the technical term in front of me, but it's, so if you could just answer those, that would be great.
Sure, let me try to, and if I miss anything, please let me know that I didn't get them. But I understood the first question to be, were there written complaints and how is this originated? So there weren't written complaints. There were oral complaints in more than one to Chaz, the town administrator, and the town administrator asked me to investigate this. The second part of it being the distinction between town meeting members and staff. Sure, correct. There is a difference between employees and officials. However, both are covered by, Chapter 268, the Conflict of Interest Statute, Office of Campaign and Political Finance, laws. They are both covered, but to different extents. So that's the kind of hard part of this, that what rules might apply to an elected official are different than to an appointed official, which is different than a salaried employee. But they're all covered by these areas of law. How and to what extent, that gets into the harder part. And the third part, I understood the question, or third question I understood to be, is there a state agency that,
Right, a conflict that investigates conflict of interest?
Correct. There is the state ethics commission, also because this also involved campaign and political finance, the Office of Campaign and Political Finance, OCPF. However, part of the investigation was town policies too. So even if this was turned over to state ethics and turned over to OCPF, there would still be a town component to it. So the outside investigator, rendered an opinion as to all three areas of, law or regulation, both conflict of interest under state law, the state law under OCPF, and our town policies.
And the result of the investigation rendered that they were that they were guilty. Well, I'm not sure what the term is, but that they did break the law in that sense, or not?
So it isn't guilty or liable, but one town meeting member was found in violation of a town policy. I'll have to go back and check, but for the most part, almost all the town meeting members were found to not to have violated any law or policy, but not all of them, but one of them was.
So of the 10 that you mentioned, one.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was like 10 witnesses. There was only about 4 or 5 town meeting members. So
Okay,
the witnesses were a lot. The town meeting members were only a handful.
Okay, so the 5 that we investigated, only one was, and this whole thing cost us $23,000. Is that a good summary?
Yes, but that's from memory. So
Yes.
if you want more information, I'll have to follow up with the particulars. But
Thank you.
I'm just having a hard time seeing the campaign angle on this, but maybe I'm missing something. I don't think it matters, but you got your point that we spent $23,000 and there was one town policy violated. That's
I
the
mean,
upshot.
most of the time our investigations turn back no violations. I mean, a lot of these investigations are kind of claims of discrimination or retaliation. And under OCPF and MCAD, those kind of laws, there's an expectation that anything will be investigated.
But there's a difference between the one that you just mentioned with principles, because that came back from the state saying that they did violate. Yet, we can't redo the election, the voting for that question, since that's not how it works. So it's just, I think in my mind, it's just very different, because those emails did bring thousands of people to vote, perhaps more than if those emails hadn't been sent. I was very close to that campaign, and I was very aware of what's happening. And by the way, I'm curious to see if this year, because right now it's happening at a very high rate, and I acknowledge that the ballot question hasn't been posed, so it's okay. But I wonder, I know that you're going to let people know that they can't do it, but I also wonder what else can be done so that it's just not a slap on the wrist at the end saying, well, you violated it, but the vote counts anyway, and just don't do it again. Wink, wink, which is how it feels sometimes, unfortunately.
So I would actually think that both of them are pretty similar, because actually the OCPF finding was that a couple emails from principals, were in violation. I think, it amounted to 29 words. That's one thing that we had in there. All the information that was sent out by the superintendent was legal. And basically the part that was illegal was the principals then copying that information and sending it to a different email list. But all the information that had been shared illegally by the principals had been shared legally by the superintendent. So when you say, oh, that's different because, there was a finding of violation, but also there was a lot of allegations of what was illegal that was not found in violation. Much like there was a lot of allegations as to the town meeting members of what their behavior was that was illegal, which wasn't, except in one circumstance. So I look at them as very similar. As to what we're doing after the OCPF, after the school question before, Jonathan has already done a training with the school committee members. We're doing trainings with town staff and school staff. And we've also invited OCPF to, do their own training here. So, we have learned from, before the last ballot question, and, one, we're, constantly educating since that, but also because of the possibility, the likelihood, that there will be a ballot question, we're doing more this year than we have in years past too.
All right, let's keep
Any
moving.
questions? All right, so before I leave this slide, you were talking about the blue boxes. I want to point out the green box. The green box this last fiscal year is the largest in my 4 years because I actually did hire outside counsel this year. We hired Bill August of August and Epstein to negotiate our Comcast license. That is something that we do every 10 years. I would agree that's something we probably could use outside counsel on, where we spent 100 hours of a legal, lawyer's time to negotiate a contract that we only need once every 10 years. That's probably not something I need my staff to keep the latest and greatest. So that was a proper, in my mind at least, expenditure of outside counsel to bring in. August and Epstein does, they do municipal practice, but their specialty is representing municipalities in negotiations with cable access companies. The other two, kind of other boxes, those green boxes, in FY23, that was just kind of the rollout of attorneys who had been hired before I got here. And then in 24 and 25, that was to hire an outside lawyer, Jack Collins, who was former general counsel of the Mass Chiefs of Police, basically one of your top management side labor lawyers. I hired him to train our prior labor and employment lawyer, Elena, after Michael Downey left. What he did was create about 20 hours of trainings that Elena was then able to watch to learn public employee labor law. But Elena has now left. Barry has those resources available. So he didn't hire Jack twice, even though we have two new labor lawyers. She's able to watch those 20 hours of Jack's videos and learn about, collective bargaining and things like that. So that's, again, another appropriate use of special counsel. It's not just hire them for one case, and then if you come back with this, same type of case, you might need to hire them. We hired Jack once, and we don't need to go back to Jack. So we might have to go back to August and Epstein in 10 years, but yeah, I probably won't be around by then. So, all right, anything else about special counsel?
Well, did we hire a special counsel for the school case? The sexual harassment from the teacher that
I don't decide who the schools hire. The schools
Okay.
decide who they hire.
So
in
I'm
the-
just remembering the two lawyers, you and this other person talking to us about the settlement with the schools. So that was just who the schools chose to hire. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Schools can hire their own counsel, and they do.
Mhm.
And in that case, they had Valerio, Rob Hillman from Valerio. Rob specializes in litigation. Liz Valerio is, you may hear her name more often. She does labor. Rob from Valerio Hillman Dominello, he does litigation. So the schools hired Rob in that, and I've worked with Rob before on school litigation before too. Yeah,
And those expenses live in the school department budget too.
yeah,
Mhm.
those expenses,
you.
yeah, don't come from here.
And the police settlement? Was that?
So Rob Hillman was hired before I got here.
Mhm.
That police settlement started in 2019. So
Mm,
again, that's the wind down of attorneys who had been hired before I got here.
okay.
So
Wow,
I
takes a long
worked
time.
with Rob Hillman on the Officer Hall matter too. Yeah. All
Okay.
right. So I've talked in years past about this money that we spend on outside counsel, but this year I want to talk about what we spend on settlements, and particularly these two slides are about tort claims, and there's a lot of words, but I'm going to go to the next slide, which has the kind of numbers to it. So on average, we handle about 100 claims, and what I mean by tort is motor vehicle accidents, a police cruiser, hitting somebody, a fire engine bouncing off a parked car, people, slipping, in town buildings, people, having a pothole and, sue us for pothole claims. Those are a different type of tort under the road defect. But basically, any claim for personal injury or property damage against the town falls into two lanes: Massachusetts Tort Claims Act or road defect. And we handle about 100 of them a year.
So this is what you wanted, that administrative, the officer, whatever, what was the name of that? You wanted there to be a hearing officer that could hear these disputes and make decisions, but then we've given up on that. So
Two things. One is
Yeah.
that is a municipal hearing officer, and that's administrative, kind of like a judge, an administrative hearing officer. That doesn't handle these. That handles tickets and things like that. Parking tickets,
okay.
code enforcement. And you're right, we're not pursuing that this year. It might come back in future years, and I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But this is torts,
Okay.
property damage, personal injuries. Okay. So we get about 100 each year that are seeking about $350,000 a year. 1 year was $1.9 million. And this is a look back of the past 8 years. Outside counsel was a look back of 12 years. What I'm talking about is a look back of the past 8 years. So we see a similar number of claims, even though we're seeing an increase in the amount of money claimed. But also what we've been doing is settling more claims, which you may worry about, except we pay out less each year. Okay. And how we do that, despite a 25% increase in inflation over the past 8 years, a doubling of the amount of money that's claimed, and kind of same number of claims and same number of payouts, we pay less in claims. So we pay about 44% less when we pay a claim than we did before. So what we're doing is basically negotiating better settlements. So those are the words. Now we'll go to the numbers. This is comparing 4-year period, the last 4 years since I got here, to the previous 4 years. It is a little bit 15 quarters because we're not in the fourth quarter of the fourth year. So it is 15 quarters versus 16 quarters. But you'll see the total number of claims are pretty similar. Okay. But the total amount of money claimed is almost double. But how much we paid out in claims is pretty similar. But how we do that is, in the previous 4 years, about a quarter of the amount claimed, we would pay out in damages. Now it's 1/9. Instead of 1/4, it's 1/9. And the total amount of claims, we're actually paying more claims. We're settling more claims. So we're settling about 70% of the claims instead of 55% of the claims. So we're actually paying more claims. We're paying, we see more claims. We're seeing more money claimed, but we're actually basically flat in how much we pay out in claims. This year's budget is $75,000 for claims. In years past, again, we've moved money from special counsel that we haven't spent, sometimes over to settlements and claims to pay those claims. So what I want to add to this year's discussion is we're saving your money even when it comes to claims. You may hear about claims, such as the two you brought up, but what you're hearing is the one time out of the hundreds that we're dealing with where there's lots of money involved. And you may say, but yeah, that's the liability fund, right? But the liability fund is when we can't afford to pay settlements within the money that's been appropriated. So then we have to go to AC. And we have in the years past, and then again, this is an eight-year look back. This is the time, the number of times we've gone back to, either AC or an Alston town meeting to pay settlements that we can't afford to settle with appropriated funds. So if you look at Alston, again, Alston wasn't paid out by the liability fund, it was bonded. So although we paid Alston $11 million to pay that, we're now paying over the next, Melissa, correct me, 10 years, I think it is, that $11 million. These last two claims that you've seen out of the liability fund, we're basically borrowing against ourselves, okay? So Alston, we paid Alston $11 million, but the town is actually, it's costing the town more because it's borrowed. These claims, which we paid in the last few years, we're paying less than what we've settled for. So the police claim was $1.8 million, but it was $500 up front, $130,000 a year for the next 8 years. So although it's 1.8 million, due to the time value of money, it's really $1.5 million. So where Alston is 11 plus, by doing this with the liability fund, it's 1.8 minus. So again, we're even saving you money, even when we have these high ticket claims that can't be paid through the liability, through existing appropriations, and we have to go to the liability fund.
So how do you decide when one of these claims comes in, whether you want, the choice is you go to trial, right? Or you settle, like something wrecked my car and I'm gonna get money from the town and I want $500,000 or whatever it is. How do you decide which ones you're going to do better by going to court with versus what you can convince them to settle for?
Sure. And this is something that we do, okay? Like I said, hundreds of times a year. And if were you around in there was one that we did for a library employee. You got
yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Create what's called an expected value of a case, okay? Every case has a value, okay? Even if we're not liable, okay? If it's chance of a $1 million, settlement, or judgment, and there's only 1% chance, well, 1% of $1 million is $10,000. So it doesn't make sense to pay them, I don't know, $5,000 to eliminate that 1% chance of $1 million. And this is what's called expected value, or you litigation risk analysis. And what you do is you do a decision tree. Can I get out at a motion to dismiss? Can I get out at summary judgment? If I was to go to trial, what's the chance of a low verdict? What's the chance of a high verdict? Okay, we just did a settlement panel this week or last week about a claim by a resident who lives across the street from a park. And they're saying, because you move the entrance of the park 22 feet, where the entrance used to line up with my driveway, now the entrance to the park lines up with my front door, I have less privacy in my house. So you've diminished the value of my house by $250,000. Their claim is for $250,000. If you ask me, as the lawyer, no way. Like, no, that's not a thing. No.
Right.
However, we filed a motion to dismiss. It was denied. We filed what's called a motion for judgment on the pleadings. That was denied. We're in
Mm.
discovery, but like, do we want to produce hundreds of documents or thousands of documents and go through lots of depositions and then file, the same motion that we filed twice before that got denied at summary judgment? Sure, we will. But can we get out of the case? So we did a settlement panel and asked 12 people, my staff and some people from town administrator's office. And we asked them, if you were the jury and here's the case, what would you give as damages? Act as a juror. What's the chance of a high verdict? And what would be a high verdict? What's a medium verdict? And what's the chance there? What would be a low verdict? We took the 12 people, their 12 answers. I'm sorry, 12 people, 3 answers, 36 answers, and came up with an expected value of $8,000. Now, if you ask me, that case ain't worth anything because we're not liable.
Mhm.
But the wisdom of the crowd says, I don't know, the expected value is $8,000. So if you can get out of it for less than $8,000 and give them, I don't know, 5, that makes sense. So
Yeah,
we're
this is
having
the part that a lot of us have a hard time with. Okay, just warning you, because it just doesn't sit right. But I hear what you're saying. I hear the logic of everything that you're saying. I get it, but it's just like when we're not wrong, why should we be paying? It's hard. It's hard to accept that. For
Sure.
myself personally, I know I feel that way.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But also, this is what's done by large organizations that face litigation all the time. I learned this at the AG's office.
Mhm.
Okay. When I was in private practice and doing insurance defense, this is what we had to do to have the insurance company set the reserve. Okay. Entities that face large amounts of litigation, this is how they handle litigation. Because in that circumstance where they're facing 100 claims of 1% liable, there's going to be a chance where they get that $1 million verdict. Now, even in the AG's office, the state police would never settle motor vehicle cases. The 20 of us in the trial division, we always had like a handful of trooper motor vehicle cases because the state police were like, a trooper drives 80,000 miles a year. So that's, 7 times the normal driver. Plus they drive not like normal drivers. So the couple hundred troopers on the road get into a lot of car accidents. The state police has policy, don't settle any of them. Okay, that means there's a lot of trials. So yeah, I had a trial of a trooper motor vehicle case for $4,000. Okay, I had a 2-day trial for $4,000. You ask anybody that tries cases, they're like, "Are you an idiot? You don't try cases for $4,000."
So is this settlement panel a real thing that you activate on a regular basis?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
So,
it's just
we're
like
like
random staff people?
Yeah, so we
Okay.
don't do them on every case. So like the teacher misconduct case, we didn't do that because we don't really like. We don't
Right.
have a good, it's a little easier on kind of the normal cases. We did it for Hall, we did it for Amy, the library employee. We do it for most cases, most big cases. We did it for a slip and fall at the Council of Aging. So we do it, but we don't do it for everything.
It seems like it's a cost benefit with your time as well.
That's why we don't do it on all of them.
Yeah,
We don't do it
yeah.
on every pothole case.
Right.
We're facing a case about a snowplow, throwing snow into a fence. We don't do it on those, but we don't do it on all of them. We do it on big ticket ones.
Joe, I appreciate what you said before of saving money by the way you were sort of doing the payouts. But I assume that also has to do with the size of the payout, right? If you had a case where you had to pay $11 million, you would still end up doing the same that was done before, I assume. Or is that Melissa question, I guess?
I'm not sure the question.
That,
If I was facing an $11 million claim?
No, if you had to pay $11 million, you would follow the same procedure that we did with Alston. So what I'm saying is that you can save money depending on the size of what you have to pay. After a certain size, we don't have enough cash lying around to not bonded.
Mhm.
So it's going to cost. So we have to borrow.
So I'm not understanding. I'm wondering if this is a statement or a question. So if it's a question, I'll answer it.
No, well, I guess the question is that you can't always not borrow in order to pay the settlement. It has to do with the size of the settlement.
Yes.
So you can save money most of the time, but there come cases where the settlement is so large that we can't do it any other way other than bonding it.
Or going to trial.
Yeah. So let me go back to the teacher misconduct case. You know, that was a case where there was an interest by the plaintiff to settle a case, and we laid out the cards. You know, we can afford a settlement this, at this level if it goes through the liability fund, but it will be less than if you want a settlement of a higher figure, then we would have to go through town meeting. So there are 3 ways, to 4 ways to settle a case: a department with their existing appropriation, town council through its settlement line item, through the liability fund, or bonding. And there's various, from
Identifying another funding source.
Yeah.
I think the 11 million was definitely a rare circumstance where
Right.
the town does not have $11 million at its disposal to settle a claim like that.
Right. So when you can have settlements that don't fit in, the smaller
Yes.
ones. Since we only have $75,000, I can't settle a case for 100. I'll have to go
Yes.
to, AC for the liability fund. So.
So
No, I agree.
Oh, go ahead, Carlos, sorry.
No, I wanted to tell let David know. David, I have a 5 o'clock capital subcommittee, and I just realized that we are 3,
Uh-oh.
so we may have a
You
quorum
can't
issue.
leave. You can't leave.
So, but it's my fault because I'm asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, well, I'm not
Can you be
helping
late
either.
to your capital meeting? Maybe we can accelerate what we do here.
Yes, Carol doesn't like it, but yes, I can be late.
So I just want to understand how the liability fund is funded. You said you had $75,000, but I don't see a line item, or is there one? Oh, okay, claims and settlements.
So that's a line item in Joe's budget. The liability fund falls under
Right.
unclassified. And so the funding from the liability fund comes from free cash.
Ah, okay.
So we'll
and-
deal with that at the AC level of the budget.
Yep, that's true. And how do
We
we
actually already
ballpark-
voted it the other night.
Oh, it was one of those extra ones we did. Yeah. So the 75,000, how did you land on that number?
It's been that way for a while.
Has it?
Yeah, that hasn't really changed. Special counsel has changed, and sometimes we take the unspent special counsel and put it over to settlements. But 75,000 has been settlements for years.
Okay.
Well,
I
it
don't know how
says
many years.
here, it says 2 years ago it was 115. It says.
That's
fiscal
what
year
we spent
25.
because it was
Oh, that's
not
okay.
appropriated. That's the
That's the,
actual.
oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading actual versus budget.
Yeah. So sometimes we'll shift it over, but what starts off the fiscal year is 75.
Understood, my error, misreading.
All right, let's see if you can get through the rest of your presentation, Joe.
So this is what we have for claims that are pending at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
3 dozen, that's kind of typical. This kind of breaks it out, into the various where they are, what type of things they are. But also none of them really have any serious financial impact that, like we've been talking about with the police or the teacher sex abuse case. Those were 7-figure claims. A couple might end up at 6, couple 100,000. 34 of them are not going to ever get there. The 2 that are potential 6-figure claims, I'm not saying are, but I could see a judgment along those lines. So
The federal courts, is that the ADA stuff?
yeah, so one in federal court is Oates, who is
Uh-huh.
suing for failure to reasonably accommodate, even though we did accommodate her and she got her bylaw, but we're still
Right.
facing a federal lawsuit over that.
Oh my God. And then the countersuit for the zoning we passed around that issue, right?
Just came in, so that's the uh, zoning validity challenge in land court. Yes.
I gotta say, I agree with that lawsuit. Anyway, okay. All right, that's gonna get interesting.
We'll defend, so you may think so, but we will be moving to dismiss and say it's perfectly valid. So yes. Just like we're saying in federal court, we didn't do
Because
anything
the
wrong.
AG's office approved it, probably, right? That's true.
They did approve it, but also that's only part of the argument because of you've heard this before from me. The AG's office only approves facially. This is a challenge as applied. But
That was very
let's just-
helpful having that listing of all the things penned. That it's very informative for those of us on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at an old annual report of like town council's office, like they list all the cases. I try not to like air our dirty laundry, but like
No, I think it's fascinating. Okay.
but we always face like dozens of lawsuits. And then you'll
Yeah.
get into, you'll get Brookline News to cover them, but it's like, yeah, but we're moving to dismiss them because they're stupid and we're not gonna like so we have dozens of pieces of litigation that we're always handling.
David, Carol is calling me. She says she needs the quorum.
Of course she is.
Okay,
By the way-
so the
I
other
have one other question.
Sure.
So, I noticed, I can't help but notice and wonder about your stated number one objective for FY 2027 is supporting the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee in strategizing how zoning objectives can be reached through bylaw amendment. First off, we're very far from trying to achieve specific zoning amendments, but we will get there. But I'm just kind of perplexed by why you see this as an area for the town councils.
Because it's consuming lots of Jonathan's time meeting with committees. No, we support
Well, no, but
plan-
he doesn't. No, he doesn't. I mean, he does stuff for like the planning board
Right,
or
exactly.
when we're airing warrant articles, things like that. But that's very different than supporting the comp plan committee. I just find
is
it
the
odd.
point that after fall town meeting, then the committee will move towards developing zoning and there will be work in the second half of the fiscal year for council to
I
actually look at
suspect,
zoning.
well, except that I suspect we're going to have to hire a consultant for that. I don't see us, working that out in-house per se. So that's just my
No, but-
vision of
but
what's going to
it's
happen.
legal-
But
It's legal work, so
Yeah,
town
legal,
council
yeah.
will be involved.
yeah, but the reason that they want to be involved is because they want to tell us how the state law is going to morph and change over time, which is anybody's guess. And frankly, I would rather see us be a little more trying to protect the town's ability to regulate our own land use rather than, I mean, I know it's reality and they're gonna do stuff and it's happening, but as terms of a stance, I think we should be less worried about trying to emulate and predict what it is the state's gonna do rather than doing what we want to do. And I just find that really frustrating.
I hear you.
Mhm.
But we also don't have an agenda. There's not a town council agenda on zoning. So if planning comes to us with zoning, town meeting comes to us with zoning, or the comp plan committee comes to us with zoning, we're going to help them. If none of them do, we have plenty of other work to do. But
Okay.
when people come to us about, can I do this? Never mind zoning. Can I do this? We will give you our opinion. I
Right.
worked in the legislature. I don't get too hung up on like the state is gonna do this. We have enough trouble handling like what the state does as opposed to worry about the 8,000 bills that are filed.
Pending.
Yeah. So I do not believe in like, oh my God, they're gonna Did
Let's
they?
preempt them. No,
Yeah.
no.
So in the interest of supporting the quorum needs of another AC committee, we can still, after we get our vote, we can release Carlos and potentially other questions can be addressed. Are there other questions prior to taking a vote. Brian?
Mine can wait, so I'm ready to.
Okay, so,
Mhm.
Joe, do you want to just restate your budget recommendation? I mean, it's in with and without, it's a $30,000 difference and the total amount is,
1,149,990. 1,149,990.
and it would be $30,000 higher if the override passed or?
Correct.
Okay,
And the offset is the other $5,000. Just tell us what that is. I'm sorry. Because I was trying to figure out why you reduced by a certain amount, but you have a reduction in, or whatever in the offset. What's going on with that? What is that? On the first page, see, it says underneath clothing and uniform allowance.
Oh, so that's the just general like things that are beyond my control in changing. So for example, payroll is going up $12,000 because of we go up in steps. So
Yeah.
you know, our positions are within grades, but then the person, you know, as they get more senior, their steps go up. The budgeted capital is going up because IT tells me it costs more money to have a laptop, or how many of our laptops we have. So those two other changes are beyond my control. The offset, yeah, I don't know what that is all about. But again,
I
that's
get very confused about this offset thing. It comes up in the planning budget too. I can't remember what it's supposed to be, and we lost Melissa. So I guess we're going to have to vote without knowing what the heck that
I don't know what
minus
it costs
5,000
either,
is.
but those are the parts of the budget that I have no control over.
Right. They're just going to be handed to you. Yeah.
Yes.
all right.
Whether I want
So,
them or not, or know what they do or not. So yeah.
so is somebody gonna move
I
recommendation?
move that we approve the
Or do we
legal
recommend to the
town
advisory committee?
council's office, the FY27 budget as printed in the budget book, because that's what I'm looking at.
Great, and what we recommend, subcommittee recommends to the
To the
advisory
full
committee.
advisory.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Great, second?
Second,
Thank you, Brian. Carlos?
Yes, but I
Linda?
have to say that I don't think we used $23,000 in a meaningful way. So I'm voting yes, but that should be noted.
Well, you're writing this up, Carlos, so you can note it. Linda?
Maybe that's why I chose it.
Yeah, yes, I'm a yes, but I agree with Carlos about that.
Brian?
yes.
And I vote yes. Okay. Carlos, you're free to go.
Thanks.
Brian?
Joe, thank you so much. I did want to say that you're probably going to get questions about information requests at the full AC
Okay.
because there's a lot of chatter about that and how information requests are just not even being responded.
Oh, the
to. There's
public
just-
record stuff,
Public
you
Yeah,
mean?
the public
public
records. There's just radio, to quote someone, radio silence. So thank you. Anyway,
Yeah.
bye.
Joe, are you aware that there've been over the last few days, there's been a thread about with a lot of people saying that their public records requests are ignored by the town?
Well, that was the Globe article started it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so are you referring to the town meeting member listserv?
Yes.
I'm not aware of it. We do. That's a public records request that we do. I look at it at the end. I don't keep track of what's going on in the town meeting member listserv in real time. So I can answer those when I see them. But let me kind of give you the response I have about public records requests and people complaining about we don't get back to them. Yes, a lot of it comes from the Boston Globe article. However, the headline of that was, it took me 18 months to get my public records
Oh,
request.
do you want to drop your screen share?
Oh,
we can see you in we can get bigger pictures. Thank you.
Let's see if I can. Okay. There we go. In that circumstance for that requester, we responded with a fee request. She wanted, you know, the superintendent's emails, you know, and there were hundreds of them. So we said, fine, you want it? What I'll tell every department is if you can respond to a public records request in 2 hours or less, 2 hours of staff time or less, go do it. However, if it takes more than 2 hours, you can respond with a fee estimate. We did respond with a fee estimate. She refused, fought it. In the end, paid it and got her documents within 6 weeks. So the, you know, Globe headline about, oh, it took me 18 months because it took her 16 and a half months to pay her fee estimate. When that came out, I saw on the listserv, other people were saying, oh, but I asked for, you know, documents and I didn't get them either. The only ones I saw at that time did get their documents, but again, it's slowly, as opposed to, you know, radio silence, which I heard you say. I will admit, we have a problem with complying in 10 days or less. I'll agree with that. But I'm not familiar with we don't respond. It might be that it's pending. I saw one, you know, that came in, someone was complaining that it went to a department and the department hasn't got back to it. But that's like, I didn't respond in 3 weeks as opposed to, you know, 10 days. So we are slow, I will admit that. But I don't think I don't know of circumstances where we don't answer, okay? You know, that we're slow, it would be great if we had more resources at this. We have a warrant article about posting of all all public records requests. What that person doesn't understand is it's not as simple as they think it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just taking, you know, the email that we send to the requester and posting on the web. We're having to follow the Americans with Disabilities Act, and anything we post on the web has to be ADA accessible, meaning all those PDFs need to be OCR'd. Every image in that you know, email has to have alt text. Every table on those you know, PDFs need to make sure that they can be formatted in a way that a screen reader can read those. So for example, we did that because we had to comply with the ADA for websites in different areas. So we were doing that with staff, in-house you know, resources. We weren't able to do all of it, so we sent that out to a contractor to make that ADA accessible at $4 per page.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know, like the town meeting member listservs, that's a public records request response. Those are typically hundreds of pages, okay? That would cost probably, what's it, 800 to 1,000 pages a month. So 100,000, what's 8 times, you know, 800 times 12, 10,000 to 12,000 pages. Just that is $40,000 to $60,000. Or staff time that we do this in-house, okay? I can't say that we would be able to do this in-house because what we were just complaining about is we don't do this timely enough. If I had all that time to say whatever number of hours it would take to do this in-house, it would be to have public records requests responded more quickly, not put whatever hundreds of hours that would be necessary to do this with putting on public records requests on the website that no one has ever asked for. So if I had 400 hours of extra staff time to do this, I would have the 400 hours of staff time be spent on more timely public records request response, as opposed to 400 hours of staff time to put on the web something that no one's ever asked for. So when we do a public records request response, it doesn't need to be OCR'd. It doesn't need to be ADA compliant. If someone asks us to, sure, we'll do it, but it doesn't have to be in every circumstance.
So I take it you were not asked this question before the warrant article was filed. So this was my last question. I just wanted to get a sense from you. Are you getting more lead time for warrant articles? Are people coming to you regularly when they, you know, to review things, or is it still you're surprised by the warrant like the rest of us are?
I would say I get people contacting us earlier more frequently, but not
Mhm.
everyone often enough.
Mhm.
You know, when I started, very few people did, and it's grown. And like, the weekend before I get 12, and it's like, oh, it could be nice if
Yeah, a little lead time would be nice. Yeah.
So here we have a good, again, not 100%, not everybody, a better percentage checking ahead of time and giving us more time. So
Mhm.
yeah, because what I try to tell people is, even if you're thinking about it, just give us a heads up. I'm thinking about a warrant article on this, and then we can give you like, here are the 3 things you need to worry about, as
Mhm.
opposed to let me write up my 10 pages and then only send it to you.
Mhm.
David and I have been spending lots of time together since the fall warrant article or fall town meeting about outdoor lighting. They did give me time.
Mhm.
I said I had concerns, and then they have never talked to me until the day after the warrant article was defeated. Okay. But there's only so much I can do, but like, yeah, some of these things took me by surprise. So
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, I think you're going to have to talk about that difficulty for many times now going forward till town meeting. But yeah, okay.
But as you saw on my last, slide, I give my phone number out to everybody.
Mhm.
It's my cell number. I don't even know my desk number because my desk phone number, whatever it is forwarded to my cell number. Okay. I take calls on the weekend. I take calls at night. I take calls in the morning. I'm not, uh, you know, uh, there was a complaint to the select board that I wasn't available when someone walked into town council's office and demanded a meeting. So I'm not always available whenever you want me to, but like, call me, send me an email, I'll get back to you. It helps if it's, an email that I need you to get back to me today because I'm doing something, or this could wait a couple days. But I think of myself as pretty open and available to talk to people. So
Are you subject to the complaint about not having people in the office? Is that an issue for the town council's office? Regina Frawley comes in on a Friday morning and no one's there and she complains. Do you have, are some of your staff working remotely and?
yes, we do work remotely. Regina, when she came in that day, there was staff.
Uh-huh.
However, she wanted to
Now,
meet
how
with
did
an
I know
attorney.
it was her? It's just a lucky guess, right?
Yes.
Okay.
There were no attorneys available to meet with her.
Uh-huh.
But my staff was, the office is open. And by the way, like, she didn't like then leave a name and number to call her. She just walked in, asked, complained, and then left. And the next I hear about it is the select board. I'm like,
What? Yeah.
what, like, is your arm broken to pick up the phone and call me? Or like, just say, hey, can Joe give me a call when, is available? So like,
Right.
I understand we're held to a higher standard,
Mm-hmm.
but the idea that you can walk into an office and meet with an attorney unannounced, unscheduled, I don't think is a standard that anyone can meet.
So do you have a minimum number of days in the office for people?
Yeah, so attorneys are able to work 2 days from home. And we always have at least one administrative staff person and one lawyer all 5 days, so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
Okay.
and then since I do night meetings, I'm frequently here till 6, so it's not just, 9 to 5,
Right.
we're here a lot,
Mhm.
so. You got an email from me, yesterday at 10 p.m., so.
Yeah, and I did not look at it then.
I
I
not
didn't even know
insisting
I
you
got it
do.
till this morning. So yeah,
That's
I
up to
did.
you, but
you
like,
did?
yeah. I'm available pretty frequently. Yes.
Okay, good to know.
Although Carla asked about meeting on a particular day, and I'm driving my daughter back home from college, so I would rather hang out with her than you guys. But other than that, I am pretty
Yeah,
available.
we won't take it personally.
Yes, exactly. She doesn't live with me. You guys are, almost,
Right.
she's in Maine a lot of times. You guys I see more frequently. So
Brian, you had a question.
Yeah, this is a rookie question. I didn't want to hold up Carlos. Apologizes to the rest of you. I just want to know how and by whom are the base salaries set? If I'm not mistaken, this is not a union contract?
Correct.
Hmm.
They're not a union contract. They're either what's called MMTP, middle managers technical. What's the P? I don't know. Anyways, mid
Professional?
managers are technical.
Professional, maybe?
Professional, yeah. MMTP is the grade. You know, there's clerical, which is my admin staff. They're clerical. My attorneys are MMTP or division heads or department heads. So John Bukite was an associate town council when my attorneys were department heads. Now they're all division heads. So John is in a D class. Jonathan Simpson as first assistant is in the D class. You know, but otherwise they're either MMTPs or Ds or Cs.
So again, rookie question, are these state categories?
Oh no, they're HR. They're not
They're
up to
just
me.
town, they're town categories.
Yep, town categories, exactly.
Okay.
How come
Like
you're
department,
not in
not
the
state,
same union with the other professionals, though?
So they're not union.
Well,
They're
like the
non-union.
planners, for instance.
Yeah, so they're non-union because town council's office is considered confidential. But
Ah,
we do have a union, one of the 36 pieces of litigation. It's not really
Yeah.
litigation, but it's an administrative proceeding. Staff in the Council of Aging office is looking to be recognized by AFSCME. And
mm,
again, it's not that we're fighting it, but it's like which
Mhm.
positions are going to go, and basically most of them are going to go because it's either confidential or management, and basically there's not many non. What's it? They're all non-confidential, non-management. So
Okay, thanks.
okay. That was a good question, Brian.
mhm.
All right.
All
I'm
right.
happy to take any others now or later.
You know, I think our work here is done.
Yes. Thanks, everybody.
And we're Friday morning, we're doing warrant article
The
14
ADU.
ADUs, and Jonathan is going to join us.
Correct.
Okay.
And Linda, I did reach out to, I'm not sure we really need the building inspector. I think it would be more for him to be up to speed on what's going on around the ADU changes, but I did invite him. He
Mhm.
said he was unavailable. He said he could send Paul Campbell, his deputy. I said, great, why don't you send Paul? So I don't know but anyway, I did follow
Yeah,
through
I
on
did
it.
have one specific question about, there's design standards and it says to the satisfaction of the building commissioner. I just wanted to get his thoughts on that. Like that's
Okay.
an odd thing
If
to
you
ask
want
him
to, if
to
you
make
want to
those
send the
decisions.
question, send me the question, I'll forward it to him and see if
Okay.
we can get a written answer.
Okay.
Great.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Is there any follow-up questions you want me to or questions you want me to follow up on?
Not me.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah.
I'm
You're done.
glad that I answered all of them, but
Well, you'll get more when at full AC guaranteed. So
Yeah, I mean,
That's
again, I don't really mind the fact that AC wants to turn over every page when we're doing
Right.
budget hearings. It's a little bit of a mismatch between the real questions about budget, which is, are you appropriately staffed? Do you have too many people or too few? How are you spending your money? Is this the right amount of,
Mhm.
and to a certain extent, these far-reaching questions do inform that, because it's like, is town council concerned with too much or too little? And,
Right.
so it's not that it's inappropriate, but we definitely stretch the envelope on a regular basis in these budget hearings. But it's again our one check-in, and Linda will recall, I think, that a few years ago, advisory, at least in its sort of in its summer, kind of deep dive, talked about trying to meet with department heads to talk about policy as opposed to budget, but it never went anywhere. And I think the problem is we'd have 2 meetings a year where we do a deep dive instead of one. Like, I don't think it would actually mean that the budget hearings would be quick. I just
No, but it was to actually have an influence on the budget, which by the time we get there, all the decisions have been made. That's.
Yes, that's true.
That's the bugaboo. So people were trying to address, but
All right.
But
too
you
many cooks.
But you see the select board, having that same problem. And that's why they do the budget summits in August and now November and, so-
Right. Right.
But literally, we start talking about the budget for next year, in August.
Right. So if you're not there, hold your fired.
I wouldn't say that, but it's just, it is a little difficult to have these conversations in March versus, the fall.
Yep. Don't know how to fix that.
Not today. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody.